You know, we've all had those moments where we feel totally overwhelmed by work. But what happens when that stress crosses a line and becomes something more? Well, today, we're going to break down burnout, what it really is, where it comes from, and most importantly, how you can start to recover. Does this sound at all familiar? That feeling of just being completely drained, of feeling kind of disconnected from your job, and that little voice in your head that just says, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Turns out, these aren't just random feelings. Nope. They are classic, textbook signals of burnout. And look, this is not just some trendy buzzword. The World Health Organization, the WHO, actually classifies burnout as an occupational phenomenon. Now, the key phrase here is chronic, unmanaged stress. This isn't about one bad week at the office. This is what happens when you're overwhelmed for a long, long time. So burnout isn't just one single feeling. It's really a trifecta of three core things. First up, you've got exhaustion. That deep, running on fumes, bone-tired feeling. Then cynicism starts to creep in. That's when you feel yourself becoming negative and just detached from your work. And finally, there's ineffectiveness, that awful sense of self-doubt, where you start to feel like nothing you do really matters. Okay, so you might be thinking, isn't this just stress? And that's a great question, but there's a really important difference. Think of it like this. Stress is a state of too much. Too much pressure, too much urgency. It makes you hyper-engaged. Burnout, on the other hand, is a state of too little. You've got too little energy, too little motivation, and you just kind of disengage. With stress, you feel like if you can just get things under control, it'll be okay. With burnout, you just feel empty. So let's talk about the real causes, and this is so important to understand. Burnout is usually less about you and way more about your environment. It is not a personal failure. It's a completely normal human response to some really messed up systemic issues at work. In fact, researchers have pinpointed 6 main mismatches between a person and their job that can lead to burnout. Things like a totally unmanageable workload, or having zero control over how you do your work. Or maybe it's a lack of reward. You just don't feel seen. It could be a poor sense of community or feeling like there's a lot of unfairness. And a big one, a clash of values, where the work you're doing just doesn't align with who you are. Any one of these can be a massive trigger. I absolutely love this quote because it just reframes the entire conversation perfectly. You're not the weak canary. Your burnout is the alarm bell signaling that the mine, your work environment, is toxic. It's a call to look at the system around you, not to try and fix yourself. All right, so how do we start to heal from this? How do we get out of that toxic mine? Well, the path forward can actually be broken down into a pretty simple framework that I call the 3 Rs. It gives us a clear, actionable roadmap. So first, you have to recognize what's really going on. Just acknowledge it without any judgment. Then you actively work to reverse the damage by taking concrete steps to get your energy back. And finally, you build resilience by creating new habits and strategies so this doesn't happen again. Okay, let's really dive into that second R, the reverse phase. This is where we get super practical. We're going to talk about some real evidence-based strategies you can start using like today to stop that burnout spiral. One of the most powerful tools out there is something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. The whole idea is that our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are all connected. So CBT helps you spot and challenge those automatic negative thoughts, the inner critic, the perfectionist, that are basically pouring gasoline on the burnout fire. And here is a perfect example of what that looks like. That thought, I can't handle this, it just makes you feel defeated, right? But what if you reframe it to, okay, this workload is heavy, but I can take it one step at a time. See that? You've just changed the story from impossible to manageable. It's a small mental shift, but it gives you back a sense of control. All right, strategy number 2 is all about psychological detachment. This is basically the art of actually truly disconnecting from work when you're not on the clock. Because if you don't, your brain never gets a chance to rest and recover. Your stress system just stays switched on 24/7. So what does this actually look like? Well, it's about creating some real separation. Turn off those work notifications after 6 p.m. Take your full lunch break and actually get away from your desk. And try to create a little ritual, like a short walk around the block, that tells your brain, okay, work is officially over for today. These small things create that crucial mental space you need to recover. And that leads us perfectly into our third strategy, reclaiming control by setting boundaries. See, burnout absolutely loves it when we feel powerless. Boundaries are how you start taking that power back. This means getting comfortable saying no to things that aren't a priority. It means being really clear about when you are and are not available to work. And yeah, it even means protecting your own energy by putting some distance between you and those colleagues who just seem to drain the life out of you. So, we've got some tools to reverse the damage. Now let's talk about that final R, resilience. This is the long game. This is about making sure that burnout doesn't become a recurring problem in your life. I want you to think about your well-being like it's a bank account, an energy account. Burnout has forced you to make withdrawal after withdrawal after withdrawal. Building resilience is all about making regular, intentional deposits back into that account. And these deposits, they're not rocket science. They are the absolute fundamentals. You've got to prioritize sleep. Seriously, aim for 7 to 9 hours. You've got to fuel your body with good food and lots of water. You need to move, even if it's just a 15-minute walk. And maybe you can try starting your day with just 3 minutes of quiet breathing. These are the non-negotiables for keeping that energy account full. And please, as you start on this path, just remember this. Recovery is a process, not a destination. You didn't burn out in a single day, and you're not going to recover in a single day either. It's going to take patience, self-compassion, and consistent intentional effort. So let's end with this. Your burnout is not a sign of failure. It is a signal. A loud, clear, unmissable signal that something in your life needs to change. And really, the only question left is, what is it telling you?